be staged. There we go, thank you. Hello, good morning, and welcome to the Tennessee Valley Unitarian Universalist Church at 11 o'clock service. And we only have a couple of announcements. Mine is that tomorrow night at 7 p.m. in this sanctuary, we will have a performance of Brother Heinrich's Christmas, which is a story about a donkey in a monastery choir getting ready for a Christmas service. It's a musical story, so it will be read by Gordon Gibson, and the musicians will be conducted by Jim Garvey of Ascension, the Episcopal Ascension on North Shore. And so that starts at 7 o'clock, and it's presented by the American Guild of Organists, Knoxville chapter. And if you can make it tomorrow at 7, great, I'd love to see you there. There will also be a reading of A Child's Christmas in Wales as part of that event.
Good morning, all of you that braved the elements to be here in person, and all of you online. So if you're in the building, turn around to that camera back there, give a wave out to all of our people that are watching us online. Let me just say, whether you're here today or in person or watching online, today is the very last day. Midnight tonight ends the voting period for the 2025 Share the Plate organizations for TVUUC. So if you haven't voted, if you are a member or a pledging friend, please go to our homepage, TVUUC.org. There is a button at the top that says Vote for Share the Plate organizations. Go in and vote for 12 of the organizations that we will support for this year. So please do that. Also, if you are here in the building today, there will be an offering basket passed in just a little bit. There's also a giving kiosk out in the lobby, and there are QR codes. During the offering period today, it will be a generosity offering. That means that 100% of whatever you give that is not a pledge goes to the TVUUC General Operating Fund. If you're online, it's even easier. There should be a Give or Give Now button. Just press that, and that takes you directly to our secure giving site. So once again, thanks for being here, and I believe Chris Buice is coming now to make an announcement.
Our musical meditation this morning is from our hymn book. It's number 31 in the gray hymnal and is called Name Unnamed. The text is by Brian Wren, and if you'd like to read along, you could follow the poetry.
Shown, knowing unknown, glory reflect on religion and science, I'm mindful that meteorology is an imperfect science. And we thank everybody for their patience as we dealt with ambiguous weather information and tried to make the best judgment call. But we're glad that everyone's here in the room and everybody's watching online, and together we will celebrate the beginning of a new year together. Our opening words come from Margaret Kite. As surely as we belong to the universe, we belong together. We join here to transcend the isolated self, to reconnect, to know ourselves, to be at home, here on earth, under the stars, linked with each other. Come, let us worship together. Let us join together in our opening hymn, which is in the gray hymnal, "With Joy We Claim the Growing Light." 345.
Together today here in this space and watching from elsewhere. I have a story to share with you today that's adapted in part from one by Ellen Kelsey, but it begins at the beginning of the universe. Oh, no, but first it begins somewhere else. Is there anybody here who would like to tell me how old you are? How old are you? You're small? How old are you? 8? 11, 7, 4, yes, 7. Oh, yeah, 39. All right, I'll do it too, 47. Yeah? What if I told you that that is kind of right and kind of wrong? It is kind of right, but it's also kind of wrong because, in a sense, we are actually billions of years old. Because everything that's made up in our bodies, all the elements that make up every part of our bodies were born in stars billions of years ago. Well, that's not quite right. The hydrogen that is in our bodies, and hydrogen is part of water, and does anybody know roughly how much of our bodies are water? Roughly 70% of water. Yeah, more than half of our bodies are water. The hydrogen makes up 2 of the 3 atoms in a water molecule. Hydrogen is actually as old as the universe itself. Every atom of hydrogen was born at the Big Bang, at the beginning of all the things. But all the other elements in our bodies, the oxygen and the carbon and the iron and all the other elements, were actually born in a star. Far, far away, billions of years ago. It is a true thing to say that we are all star stuff. And in a way, have any of us ever wondered if there were aliens among us? If there are extraterrestrials here on Earth? Well, in a sense, there are, and you can look around the room at all of them right now, because we are all born from the stars. And the water inside our bodies also has been around for a long, long, long time. Some of the water that's in your body right now might have been in a puddle that a dinosaur drank from. And the water inside our bodies is salty. Has anybody ever noticed that if you taste tears, if you're crying, and you taste some of it, is it salty? The saltiness in our tears and our sweat and in our blood is as salty as the ocean. We are all so much older than we realize or think that we are. And not only that, we are all connected with one another too, because we are all from the same star stuff. Every person you meet, everything you hold in your hands. And so I want to invite those who would like to, any young people this morning who would like to take part in a little bit of a stardust ritual, as a reminder that we are all star stuff and we are all connected. I have some eco glitter gel, some biodegradable glitter gel, and we're gonna put a little bit of glitter on your hand, if you would like, before we head out to our religious exploration spaces to show that we are all stardust. So come on up if you would like. If you would like some stardust on your hand as a reminder that you yourself are stardust, come on up and we'll do that, and then we will sing our song to head out, those who are going to our religious exploration spaces. Thank you all.
Always interested in those unplanned dimensions when I do a service, and reflecting on, science and realizing how meteorology doesn't always get it right. And you'll notice that mostly I preach from paper, and I do have my sermon here on paper and readings in paper, but I had the joys and concerns, I emailed them to myself, and my phone went dead. So technology fails us, and I want to say, as our joy and concern, let's just reflect on, and I'll send out through email and other ways our joys and concerns so people be up to date. But I'm mindful of the ways that technology helps us stay connected to each other, but also helps us sometimes make us alienated from each other and alone. There's a lot of research that the more time people spend on devices, the higher the level of depression. So as we reflect on spirituality and science and technology, just let's embrace that paradox. I invite you to also consider all the joys and concerns which remain unspoken as we sing our song together.
Sending you love.
invite you to open your gray hymnal to responsive reading 530, which is one of my favorites, sort of brings spirituality and science together. Out of the stars. I'll read the first part and invite you to say the words in italics. And I'll say the words in italics too, so the folks who are watching online can hear them. Out of the stars in their flight, out of the dust of eternity, here have we come, stardust and sunlight mingling through time and through space. Out of the stars have we come up from time, time out of time, time out of time, before time, in the vastness of space. Earth spun the earth, the sun, earth with thunder, mountains newborn, the boiling of seas. Born by the sun, lit by the sunlight, this is our home. Out of the stars have we come. Mystery hidden in mystery, back through all time, mystery rising through rocks in the storm and the sea. Out of the stars, rising from the rocks and the sea, kindled by sunlight on earth arose life. Ponder this thing in your heart. Ponder with awe. Out of the sea to the land, out of the shallows came ferns. Out of the sea to the land, up from darkness to light, rising to walk and to fly. Out of the sea trembled life. Ponder this thing in your heart, life up from sea, eyes to behold, throats to sing, mates to love. Life from the sea, warmed by the sun, washed by rain. Life from within, giving birth, rose to love. This is the wonder of time. This is the marvel of space. Out of stars swung the earth. Life upon earth rose to love. This is the marvel of life, rising to see and to know. Out of your heart, cry wonder, sing that we live. So let's enter into a time of prayer and meditation with these words by Kyle Johnson. O Spirit that moves in all things, great mystery, whose reach spans beyond the cold, distant edges of the universe, and yet is present within the vast subatomic emptiness, coursing through every fiber and every breath of our being, and through being itself. Help us to see the miracle in the mundane, to see the crystal stars, the shape-shifting clouds, the patient trees, to see each other through fresh eyes. For it is easy to forget we truly are and what we've been given. As we move through our lives, let us remember to see the mundane in the miracle beneath, and to perceive that common substance that gives birth to our myriad forms, the mystery that spans beyond the edges of the universe and yet infuses our next breath. And let this fountain awareness, this foundational awareness, guide us on our paths as we work toward peace and we struggle for justice, while always informed by compassion. Let us enter into the mystery and the miracle of the mundane in silence together, in stillness. Grateful for the voices and the noises in the midst of the stillness. We say, Amen.
Amen.
You can remain seated for our next hymn, which is 343 in your hymnal, gray hymnal.
a saurian, and caves where ancients dwell. The sense of law and beauty, a face turned from the sod. Some call it evolution, and others call it God. Haze on the far horizon, the infinite tender sky, ripe, rich, and rich of cornfields and wild geese sailing high, and over high and lowland, the charm of goldenrod. Some people call it autumn, and others call it God. Like tides on crescent sea beach, where moons so new and thin, into our hearts' high yearnings come welling, surging in. Come from the mystic ocean, whose rim no foot has trod. Some people call it longing, and others call it God. A century lone and frozen, a mother starved for her brood, and sacred cheese, dread hemlock, and Jesus on the road, and millions who, though nameless, the straight hard pathway trod. Some call it consecration, and others call it God.
So one of the really neat things about being a Unitarian Universalist minister is the chance to study and learn more about different religions. And when I had Catherine's job back in ancient history, religious education director, I developed a relationship with the Baha'i tradition. They would come and do some really good stories with our kids. And one of the things the Baha'i lift up is the harmony of science and religion. And it's not only something they lift up in contemporary times, it's part of Scripture in that tradition. So these words are from Abdul Baha, but they have the quality of Scripture and are treated as such. Divine religion is not a cause for discord and disagreement. If religion becomes the source of antagonism and strife, the absence of religion is to be preferred. Religion is meant to be the quickening of life of the body. It is the cause of death to humanity. Its non-existence, if it were to be the cause of death of humanity, in its non-existence, it would be a blessing and not a benefit. Among other principles of Baha'u'llah's teachings was the harmony of science and religion. Religion must stand the analysis of reason. It must agree with scientific fact and proof so that science will sanction religion and religion fortify science. Both are indissolubly welded and joined in reality. If statement and teachings of religion are found to be unreasonable and contrary to science, they are outcomes of superstition and imagination. Therefore, we must cast aside such beliefs and investigate reality. That which is found to be real and conformable to reason must be accepted, and whatever science and reason cannot support must be rejected. Then differences of belief will disappear. All will become one family, one people, and the same susceptibility to divine bounty and education will benefit all. So as we reflect on these words, I invite you to give generously at the beginning of the new year for the mission of this church, and in gratitude for the staff that really struggled how to be open and how to do that, working with ambiguous weather information. So today I'm really grateful for the team that makes our worship possible, both here and online.
Our whole universe was in a hot, dense state. Nearly 14 million years ago, expansion started. Wait, the earth began to cool, the autotrophs began to drool. Neanderthals developed tools, we built a wall, we built the pyramids. Math, science, history, unraveling a mystery. It all started with the Big Bang. Since the dawn of man is really not that long, as every galaxy was formed in less time than it takes to sing this song. A fraction of a second, the elements were made. Bipeds stood up straight, the dinosaurs all met their fate. They tried to leave, but they were late. They all died, they froze their asses off. The oceans and Pangea sea it wouldn't want to be ya, set in motion by the same Big Bang. It all started with the Big Bang. It's expanding ever outward, but one day it will pause and start to spin the other way. Collapsing ever inward, we won't be here, it won't be heard. Best and brightest figure that it'll make an even bigger bang. Australopithecus really have been sick of us, debating how we're here. They're catching deer, we're catching viruses. Religion or astronomy and Carta Deuteronomy. It all started with the Big Bang. Music and mythology, Einstein and astrology. It all started with the Big Bang. It all started with the Big Bang.
During these difficult times, that sometimes we need to look for reasons to find joy. And one of the things, I'm probably one of the last people on earth to discover the television series The Big Bang Theory, which I only discovered last year and started watching. But every time I hear that theme song, it makes me smile. It brings joy. And I'm going to try to do the version that's on television done by the Bare Naked Ladies a cappella. And I've got a cheat sheet, but the last two words are Big Bang, so you can join in on that part. Our whole universe was in a dark, dense state. Then nearly 40 billion years ago, expansion started. Wait, the earth began to cool, the autotrophs began to drool. Neanderthals invented tools. We built a wall, we built the pyramids. Math, science, history, unraveling the mystery that all started with a Big Bang. Exactly. For some reason, that song just makes me happy. The beginning of a new year seems like a good time to contemplate the beginning of the cosmos, the beginning of the universe. And I've been thinking about Victor Hobday, who is a member of this church of blessed memory. He's no longer living, but he loved to talk about the Big Bang Theory. If you ever sat down with him at a potluck dinner or got into a conversation in personal beliefs and commitments, he loved to talk about the Big Bang Theory. And here's something that's really interesting that I learned when I went to visit him in the hospital room. He was in after surgery, and it was kind of a painful recovery, so he was going through a hard time. But one of the things I noticed is that whenever we started talking about the Big Bang Theory, he would forget his pain. His eyes would light up, and the conversation would become animated, and all of a sudden we were kind of immersed in the cosmos as we had that conversation, sort of transcending all the suffering that was going on in the room. And so I learned about the Big Bang Theory in science, in the scientific idea, but Victor taught me what the Big Bang Theory and how it can be applied for the purposes of pastoral care, which is something I never knew was possible. Now, Carl Sagan was a humanist and an atheist, but he once wrote something that helped me understand why I always felt these conversations with Victor were very spiritual. And Sagan wrote, "In its encounter with nature, science invariably elicits a sense of reverence and awe. Science is not only compatible with spirituality, it is a profound source of spirituality. When we recognize our place in the immensity of light years and in the passage of ages, when we grasp the intricacy, beauty, and subtlety of life, then that soaring feeling, that sense of elation and humility combined is surely spiritual. The notion that science and spirituality are somehow mutually exclusive does disservice to them both." I've always liked those words. Now, if Carl Sagan is right, he means that science is a source for our spiritual growth. But before I say anything more about that subject, it seems like I need to make a confession so you'll know a little bit more about the person giving the sermon. At least a decade ago, there was an advertisement that there was going to be a film in the IMAX theater that was based on the photographs or images that coming to us from the Hubble telescope. And as soon as I saw that, I knew I had to go see that movie. I had to go see the first showing. And so I got there early, I bought my ticket, and when I got in the theater, I was the only person there. And 30 minutes later, still the only person there. But when the movie started, there were 5 of us. And that's when I realized not everyone shares my passion for science. Not everyone shares it. But my hope is that when I preach this sermon, more than 4 or 5 people will get something out of it. That's my goal. Marie Curie won the Nobel Prize for her scientific work. She wrote this, and this is my translation. "I am among those who think that science has great beauty." When I think about that, I think about those images from the Hubble telescope, all the colors and the varieties of the star clusters and galaxies. So she writes, "When we think that science has great beauty," she writes, "a scientist in her laboratory is not only a technician, she is also a child placed before natural phenomenon which impress her like a fairy tale. We should not allow it to be believed that all scientific progress can be reduced to mechanisms, machines, gearings, even though such machinery has its own beauty. So science is not only about the search for truth, but it brings us into that realm of life that is about the appreciation of beauty. And I heard someone say, I can't remember who, about those photos from the Hubble telescope. They said, "The universe appears to be more beautiful than it is required to be." As a Unitarian Universalist minister, I've enjoyed studying many of the different world religions, and especially like the way the Baha'i lift up the harmony of science and religion very frequently and very centrally to that tradition. And I want to repeat some of the words that were in the scripture I read earlier. Religion must stand the analysis of reason. It must agree with scientific fact and proof so that science will sanction religion and religion fortify science. That which is found to be real and conformable to reason must be accepted. Whatever science and reason cannot support must be rejected. Then differences of belief will disappear. All will become one family, one people. So in that sense, in the Baha'i tradition, that search for science, that search for truth in science is like the religious search. It's about becoming one. It's about coming to truth from many different angles and learning and experiencing that sense of oneness, one people together, one family. Now, these words suggest that revelation, it's a word that sort of rings with antiquity, revelation. These words seem to suggest that Revelation is not just something we would read about in an old, dusty book on our shelf, but Revelation is something we might see with our own eyes, or see through the lens of a telescope, or through the eyepiece of a microscope. Religion is not only about historical events that happened in the past, but about new discoveries, scientific discoveries that can help guide us into the future. Stephen Hawking was a physicist who spent much of his life searching for a verifiable, grand, unified theory of physics. And about his life's work, he once wrote, "If we do discover a complete theory, it should in time be understandable in broad principle by everyone, not just a few scientists. Then we shall all, philosophers, scientists, and just ordinary people, be able to take part in the discussion of the question of why it is that we and the universe exist. If we find that question, if we find the answer to that, it would be the ultimate triumph of human reason, for then we would know the mind of God." In other words, if we do finally arrive at a verifiable, unified theory of everything, it should appeal to more than just 4 or 5 people in a movie theater. It should be something that we can discuss and share in the widest possible way. And although Stephen Hawking was an atheist, he often fell in the habit of using religious language when you're talking about some of the issues that are bigger than our current knowledge, bigger than the human mind at present. And so there was a spiritual quality to some of his writings. Of course, the character Sheldon on The Big Bang Theory is also an atheist, and he's known for saying prayers like, "Why have you forsaken me, O deity, in whose existence I doubt?" But in another episode, Sheldon describes physics this way. He says, "The goal of science is to tear off the mask of nature in order to see the face of God." So there's something about scientific exploration that brings us to the language of reverence, something that transcends our knowledge, transcends our experiences of the moment. Along these lines, I once had a high school student that attended my church in Spartanburg, South Carolina. He was an exchange student from one of the Scandinavian countries, and he was a diehard atheist, and he was uncomfortable in any church, including ours, even though he was free to share what he believed and what he thought without fear of censure or reprisal, and he got that. He got that he was free to express his opinions. And one day he came up to me and said, "Chris, I don't believe in God, but if you ever sit down for a minute to contemplate the idea of infinity, it will blow your mind." The skeptical teenager willing to sit down and contemplate infinity. This is sort of like one of those experiences, to use the language of a Maryville College student I was once in a conversation with. He would say, contemplating infinity is a thought grenade. Thought grenade. Kaboom. Bang. In a Unitarian Universalist church, I believe our approach to theology is similar to a scientific approach to truth. We hold our beliefs in many ways like a scientist would hold a theory. When I became a Unitarian Universalist, one of my conservative friends said to me, he said, "Chris, what's going to happen if you die and you go to heaven and it's not Buddha and it's not Mahatma Gandhi waiting for you and it's not Muhammad, but it's Jesus and only Jesus there waiting for you?" And I said, Like any good Unitarian, I will revise my theology in light of new experiences. But that's the way we hold our ideas and our beliefs. Open to new experiences, open to new evidence. So science does have its shadow side. Marie Curie, experienced a lot of sexism, even though she won the Nobel Prize. This week I was listening to a interview with a Quaker scientist, Jocelyn Bell Burnell, who discovered the first pulsar, and then the second pulsar, and then the third pulsar. But she was kind of low level in the scientific research, even though it was her discovery. All three were her discovery. And so when it came time to get the Nobel Prize, her name wasn't on it. And she said when she was a student in physics, it was catcalling, just a lot of misogyny in science. So so there's a shadow side in science, as there is in everything. So I had bad news last year and good news at the end of last year, and it's very relevant for the topic of science. Last year I got the diagnosis that I had stage 4 prostate cancer that had spread to the lymph nodes, and the good news I got this year is I saw my proton radiation medicine doctor, and I got a clean bill of health. My PSA score is 0.05, which is pretty spectacular, and I don't have to see that doctor for another 6 months. But last year I spent a lot of time contemplating my mortality, wearing that hospital gown that's a little bit too revealing in the back, feeling vulnerable with all those medical technicians and the cyclotron, and it was a chance to contemplate my mortality. And one of the things that I couldn't help knowing, proton radiation, that the same science that was saving my life is the science that leveled Hiroshima and leveled Nagasaki. So the same science is capable of so much destruction, also capable of healing. Robert Wilson, the first scientist to propose using proton radiation to combat cancer, was part of the Manhattan Project that created the bomb. And he was so emotionally shaken by that experience, he decided that for the rest of his life, he would try to find ways to use nuclear science for peaceful purposes. But I mention that because science is sort of like the dance of Shiva in Hindu mythology, the dance of creation and destruction, the dance of life and death. And last year I spent a lot of time worrying about the dance of death, and this year I'm planning to do the dance of life, the dance of life. So last year, as I was contemplating my mortality, I had chances to contemplate my conversations with Victor Hobday of blessed memory. He is buried on a hill just down Sutherland Avenue at the Highland Memorial Cemetery. And I like to go sit by his grave, one, to commune with an old friend, but it's got probably the best view of the Smokies on a clear day. Sitting up on that hill, you can see wave upon wave of the Smokies going off into the distance. And so sitting there, I always say death ends a life, but it doesn't end a relationship. Sometimes you can still have conversations with those who are no longer with us. And one of my traditions is to ride my bike down there. So I go down the bike trail and I get along Sutherland Avenue, and then I have this little route in the cemetery. And one day when I was doing it, I realized this route was a figure 8, or the symbol of infinity. So here I was riding my bike, contemplating infinity in a graveyard. How's that for a thought grenade? Kaboom. Kaboom. So here we are at the beginning of a new year, 2025, which is a good time to contemplate the beginning of the universe. As a minister, I like to be optimistic. I like to be hopeful. But when I look at events, events in New Orleans, events in Las Vegas, events all over the world, there is reason to believe that there will be pain and there will be suffering in the next year. And so that means we can take a moment to contemplate what brings us joy in the midst of suffering. This week I was online having a conversation with Carol McCold, and she mentioned they family took this ideal, holiday vacation in Paris. It was all meant to be good, and she got shingles while she was there. It was still a great vacation and everything, but when she was undergoing the suffering that shingles involved, her daughter Cora started singing a song. Shingle bells, shingle all the way. And since Cora studied for the ministry at Harvard Divinity School, I texted back, she probably learned that in pastoral care class. But I think it's a good example of how we can find a measure of joy in the midst of suffering. So think of Victor Hobday, even if you've never met him, who could forget his pain, contemplating the cosmos, forget suffering. And think of the physicist Stephen Hawking, who suffered from Lou Gehrig's disease most of his life, moving around in a wheelchair and communicating through a computer program. The limited potential of one body and the almost unlimited potential of the human mind. Hawking was no stranger to suffering, but he gave this piece of advice to his students who asked him about how he persevered with all those challenges. He said, "Don't look down at your feet, look up at the stars." Don't look down at your feet, look up at the stars. And those words can inform us and how we feel at the beginning of the new year, reflecting on the beginning of the universe. Remember what gives you joy. Remember what makes you forget your pain, even if it is simple as a song. Our whole universe was in a hot, dense state. Then nearly 40 billion years ago, expansion started. Wait, the earth began to cool, the autotrophs began to drool, Neanderthals invented tools, we built a wall, we built the pyramids. Math, science, history, unraveling the mystery, which all started with a Big Bang. Happy New Year, everybody. Let's join together in our closing hymn, which I need to look at. Joyful, joyful, we adore thee. Hymn 29 in your gray hymnal. Rise and body your spirit. Great Church, the world awaits your liberating ministry. Go forward in the power of love. Proclaim the truth that makes us free. And watch out for ice on those roads. As our last act of worship, I invite you to turn and greet your neighbor.
It's always good to have your head out of that kid. Oh, good. I'm trying to learn to sing the bass part. All right. Good. Thank you. I'm mother for